Told me that there would be a lot more deaths and that I'd been linked to something that's there for a lot of them.
Did you have any concerns that there was a rise in the mortality rate?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me about that. What concerns did you have?
I think we'd all just noticed as a team in general and nursing staff that this was a rise compared to previous years.
Welcome to True Crime US, your source for the latest updates on criminal incidents that capture the nation's attention. Today, we delve into the bone-chilling saga of Lucy Letby, an English neonatal nurse turned serial killer. During the harrowing span of 2015 to 2016, Letby callously targeted a minimum of 13 defenseless infants under her care, ruthlessly claiming the lives of 7 innocent souls. To ensure you never miss a beat in this gripping narrative or any other compelling stories of crime and the relentless pursuit of justice, be sure to subscribe to our channel and activate the bell icon for timely notifications. Lucy Letby entered this world on the 4th of January in the year 1990. Growing up in the serene town of Hereford, she embarked on her educational journey at Aylstone School and later progressed to Hereford Sixth Form College. It was there that she laid the foundation for her future by immersing herself in the study of nursing. Driven by her passion for caring for others, Letby pursued her nursing education at the esteemed University of Chester. During her 3-year training, she not only dedicated herself to academic pursuits, but also gained invaluable real-world experience as a student nurse. This involved carrying out placements at renowned healthcare institutions such as Liverpool Women's Hospital and the Countess of Chester Hospital. As an only child, Letby stands out for her remarkable distinction. She proudly holds the title of being the pioneer in her family, venturing into the realm of higher education at a university. Her unwavering commitment and dedication culminated in her graduation in September 2011, marking a significant milestone in her life's journey. The support and guidance of Letby's parents have been instrumental in her pursuit of success. Her father, a retired finance manager, and her mother, an accounts clerk, have played integral roles in shaping her character and nurturing her ambitions. In 2012, Letby embarked on her journey as a registered nurse, joining the neonatal unit of the esteemed Countess of Chester Hospital. Prior to 2015, this neonatal unit operated like any other across England. A dedicated team consisting of around 30 nurses and 7 pediatric consultants ensured round-the-clock care for numerous premature babies each year. These tiny fighters, some born as early as 12 weeks before their due date and weighing as little as 450 g, entered the world in what medical professionals refer to as the margins of viability. Yet, with the right level of care, the prospects for these extremely premature infants were promising. Studies revealed that out of every 1,000 premature babies born annually in the UK, less than 2 would succumb to their challenges. Within the walls of the Countess of Chester Hospital's neonatal unit, the average year witnessed hundreds of babies passing through, with only 1 to 3 unfortunate losses. However, that statistic changed in 2015. In a mere 14 days during the month of June, 3 infants tragically succumbed to sudden deaths, while another rapidly deteriorated without warning. These infants, still in the early stages of their lives, had been stable and expected to eventually return home with their parents. However, Letby had other plans. On the evening of June 8, 2015, just moments after commencing her night shift, Letby injected air into an intravenous long line connected to a boy who had been born prematurely the day before, along with his twin sister. The immediate consequence was devastating. The fragile baby collapsed, prompting a swift response from doctors who desperately attempted to resuscitate him. As the child's mother, recovering from labor and confined to a wheelchair, tearfully pleaded, "Please don't let my baby die." Despite their valiant efforts, the boy's life slipped away, and at 8:58 p.m., within a mere 90 minutes of Letby commencing her duty, he was pronounced dead. That fateful night, the baby's father stood watch over his slumbering daughter's crib, only meters away from where her twin brother had tragically passed away. Family members took turns, ensuring a constant vigil over her for nearly 24 hours, remaining by her side until 8 p.m. the following day. But this was, cruelly, the time Letby came back on shift. The little girl's alarm sounded shortly after midnight. She suddenly looked desperately ill, The trial heard, despite having had no problems in her first 48 hours of life. Within the confines of the hospital, a nurse's exclamation of "Oh no, not again," echoed through the air as doctors swiftly initiated resuscitation efforts. Observant hospital staff noticed peculiar changes in the baby's skin, manifesting as patches of unusual purple and white hues. These distinct markings had made their appearance for the first time the previous night on her brother. Overwhelmed with anguish, the mother wept, pleading, "Not my baby, not again." While the doctors managed to save the precious life of the little girl, her road to recovery would require an additional month of hospitalization before she could finally return home.
We paediatricians were certainly concerned that someone, and suspicions fell on Lucy Letby, could have been harming and perhaps killing patients on the unit.
Evidence unveiled during the trial shed light on Letby's unsettling behavior. Examination of her phone records revealed multiple instances of her searching for the mother of the twins on Facebook. The first search occurred shortly after she concluded her shift, during which she tragically took the life of the one-day-old boy. Subsequently, another search took place the following night, after her attempt to harm his sister. She searched for the mother again 2 months later. In her later confession, the nurse admitted to conducting online searches for numerous parents of the infants under her care. Police discovered a staggering total of 2,381 Facebook searches recorded on her phone between June 2015 and June 2016, averaging around 200 searches per month. While only a fraction of these searches pertain to the parents of the 17 babies involved in this trial, they followed a deeply disconcerting pattern. Letby frequently engaged in a rapid succession of searches for multiple parents of her victims, seemingly progressing methodically, one by one, in her quest for their sorrow. Disturbingly, she even pursued these searches on Christmas Day, a time traditionally associated with joy and celebration.
Lucy Letby was operating in plain sight. She was in a position of trust. Parents trusted her, her colleagues trusted her, and that cover of trust allowed her to commit these offences. Nobody at that time would even imagine that somebody was harming babies on that unit.
In the wake of Letby's assault on the twins, the grim tally of her victims continued to rise. 2 more innocent babies fell victim to her sinister acts in the following days. The sudden and unexplained deterioration of the 4-day-old boy and 2-day-old girl left doctors baffled. Once again, their skin displayed an unsettling change in color, a phenomenon that had previously caught the attention of medical professionals. Little did they know that this peculiar discoloration would later emerge as a distinctive signature of Letby's crimes. During the trial, it was revealed that 3 out of the 4 infants had been deliberately subjected to a lethal injection of air through their intravenous lines. This was Letby's preferred method of attack, as described to the jury. The changing hue of their skin, an enigmatic occurrence that had left many consultants perplexed, became a chilling hallmark of her actions, though its significance remained unknown at the time. Dr. Ravi Jayaram, the esteemed head pediatric consultant of the neonatal unit, exudes the composed demeanor one would expect from a dedicated children's doctor. However, a sense of unease gripped him as he grappled with the tragic deaths of 3 infants within a mere 14-day span. In his quest for answers, he meticulously reviewed the care provided to these fragile lives, only to find that save for a few minor areas for improvement, there was no apparent explanation for their untimely demise.
I've been a paediatrician since 1992, and I had never in my career seen anything like this.
Dr. Jayaram's attention shifted to a seemingly innocuous detail: the presence of a single nurse during each of the fatalities, Letby. Armed with this discovery, he summoned Alison Kelly, the director of nursing, to share his findings.
And actually, initially, there was a feeling of thank goodness Lucy was on, because she's really good in a crisis, she's really good at managing these things. But as time progressed, the thoughts started springing into our heads. Could she be doing something deliberately? It's a big moment, and it's a chilling moment. I don't think anybody has a rule book for how you deal with a situation where you're suspecting that somebody's causing deliberate harm to babies on your neonatal unit.
This marked the first time Letby had been identified as a potential suspect. However, at the time, most of her colleagues regarded her as merely unfortunate. My initial sentiment towards Lucy Letby was one of sympathy. Dr. John Gibbs, a pediatric consultant who works with her, shared. She happened to be present when some of these babies experienced distress and passed away, and perhaps it was purely coincidental. Yet as these incidents persisted, it became increasingly evident that this could not be dismissed as sheer happenstance. In the subsequent year, a series of horrifying incidents unfolded, revealing the extent of the young nurse's malevolence. Letby, with a chilling disregard for life, resorted to poisoning 2 newborns with insulin, injecting others with air, force-feeding excessive amounts of milk, and even tampering with feeding tubes, causing trauma to an innocent baby's throat. The majority of these heart-wrenching attacks occurred during the night, often mere moments after the parents had reluctantly departed, entrusting their precious newborns to the care of the hospital staff. Some infants became targets when their assigned nurse briefly stepped out of the room, leaving them vulnerable to Letby's calculated strikes. In other instances, Letby cunningly injected air into the tiny bodies, while on her final shifts, she intentionally overfed one baby, ensuring their deterioration would unfold under the watchful eyes of unsuspecting colleagues. Although Letby's presence at the scenes of the infant's sudden collapses was no secret, the insidious nature of her crimes eluded detection. Interestingly, trainees within the hospital, in a somewhat tongue-in-cheek manner, began referring to her as the Angel of Death, a moniker that eerily echoed the case of Alet, another children's nurse who earned the same nickname after perpetrating similar acts of horror in 1991. However, at that time it was merely a playful title, devoid of any suspicion regarding Letby's involvement in such heinous acts. One of the reasons Letby was able to get away with it for so long was because no one saw her harm babies, and she was adept at covering her tracks. But one night she was almost caught in the act. It was around 9 p.m. on the fateful evening of August 3, 2015, when a mother arrived at the neonatal unit, bearing expressed breast milk for her 5-day-old twin boys, referred to as Child E and Child F during the court proceedings. Born prematurely at just 11 weeks, these resilient infants had made remarkable progress and were scheduled for transfer to a hospital closer to their family's residence. As the mother approached, a jarring and distressing scream pierced through the dimly lit corridor outside Nursery 1, causing her heart to race with anxiety. Hastening inside, she discovered Letby, the nurse on duty, standing in close proximity to Child E's incubator. To her horror, the child exhibited fresh blood around his mouth, clearly in a state of extreme distress. Seeking immediate answers, the mother turned to Letby, whose name badge bore a distinctive yellow butterfly sticker. Attempting to allay her fears, the nurse reassured her that everything was under control, attributing the blood to a minor irritation caused by the feeding tube rubbing against the infant's throat. Encouraging the mother to return to the postnatal ward and rest, Letby skillfully deflected any suspicions that might have arisen. Little did she know that a mere 2 hours later, doctors would be frantically battling to save Child E's life. The child had suffered a devastating loss of blood, with more than a quarter drained from his fragile body. Additionally, his tummy had assumed a disconcerting hue of purple and white, mirroring the telltale discoloration observed in 3 previous victims of the nurse. Tragically, he was pronounced dead at 1:40 a.m. His mother, grappling with unimaginable grief, allowed Letby to perform one final act of tenderness. With a heavy heart, she watched as the nurse bathed her lifeless son, delicately wrapping his tiny 1.4 kilogram in the smallest white gown available. Little did she know that the next target of Letby's sinister intentions would be her remaining child, the baby's twin brother. This time, however, the nurse employed a crude and chillingly different approach, poisoning Child F with insulin. Just 2 days after his birth, Child F had been prescribed a minute dosage of insulin to assist in regulating his blood sugar levels. As he received vital nutrients through a fluid-filled bag, connected via a lengthy intravenous line attached to his delicate leg, Letby seized upon the opportunity to execute her malevolent plan. In the early hours of August 5th, a mere 24 hours after the tragic demise of his twin, Letby injected insulin into the bag, infiltrating the veins that sustained the vulnerable infant's fragile life. Furthermore, she added an additional dose to a replacement bag, ensuring that if the first dosing failed to claim his life, the second would almost certainly seal his tragic fate. His heart rate surged, blood sugar levels plummeted, and one of his delicate legs swelled, leaving doctors puzzled and deeply concerned. In their quest for answers, medical professionals swiftly replaced the fluid bag that nourished the child, hoping for signs of improvement. However, unbeknownst to them, a sinister force continued to drip insulin into the vulnerable infant's fragile body. It was only when the decision was made to withdraw the second fluid bag that a glimmer of hope emerged as the baby's condition began to stabilize. Subsequent analysis of the results yielded a chilling revelation. Child F's blood work revealed extremely high levels of insulin, coupled with alarmingly low C-peptide levels. These findings provided conclusive evidence that the child had been subjected to a substantial and unauthorized dose of insulin. It became indisputably clear that an insidious perpetrator was at large, deliberately inflicting harm upon these innocent infants. Weeks passed before the conclusive results of the investigations emerged, and when doctors on the unit finally examined them, the true significance became apparent. A senior doctor, who meticulously analyzed the victims of Letby's heinous acts, noted that her selection process was far from random. Each victim was carefully chosen, with a calculated approach. Many of them already had underlying vulnerabilities, such as extreme prematurity or inherited conditions. Letby exploited these factors to create an illusion of plausibility, casting doubt on any suspicion surrounding the deaths. Deaths on the unit, although rare, were described by doctors as expected and explainable. The very presence of these babies in the unit underscored their vulnerability, and Letby's victims were often the most delicate among them. These infants required constant and intensive care, far beyond simple feeding and monitoring. Letby's wicked intentions manifested in various ways, such as attempting to end the life of a newborn boy within a mere 12 hours of his birth. She forcefully inserted a nasogastric tube down his throat, using his hemophilia as a cover to explain the resulting severe bleeding. Additionally, her sinister actions extended to targeting siblings as well, as evidenced by the inclusion of 3 sets of twins and 1 set of triplets among her victims during the year leading up to June 2016.
It was a worrying time because suspicions and concerns had been growing. And then in June 2016, there were several deaths in very quick succession. We were expecting them to go home, and suddenly, one after another, they died. And that really worried us. And at that point, we felt something drastic had to be done to protect the babies on the unit.
In just 10 days in June 2016, she murdered 2 triplet brothers and attempted to kill another boy, either side of a 2-night trip to Ibiza with a fellow nurse. The prosecution asserted that by this point, Letby had spiraled out of control, deriving a sick enjoyment from her role as a self-proclaimed deity, toying with her defenseless victims. Upon her return from Ibiza, Letby learned of the birth of identical triplets. As she prepared to resume her duties the following morning, she texted her friends, hinting at a dramatic return, stating she would be back in with a bang LOL. She later insisted that this message referred solely to the unit's busy atmosphere, rather than anything sinister. Letby was given responsibility for 2 of them, Child O and Child P. The 2 brothers were all in good condition. However, tragedy struck on the fateful afternoon of June 23, 2016, when the boys were nearing the 48-hour mark of their young existence. Child O's heart rate began to escalate, while his stomach swelled to an alarming extent, likened to the iconic image of E.T.'s distended abdomen, as recollected by his father. The parents were urgently summoned from the labor ward as Child O experienced 2 grave collapses, plunging the neonatal unit into a state of panic. Doctors and medical staff raced against time, battling to save the newborn's life. Meanwhile, the boy's mother, still in the process of recovery from labor, sat outside the intensive care room in a wheelchair, grappling with the overwhelming emotions that rendered her unable to draw nearer. Tragically, by approximately 6 p.m., Child O was pronounced dead. In their grief-stricken state, the devastated parents were left without answers as to why their precious child had been taken from them. Yet they were assured that his brothers remained in good health and unharmed. Little did they know that within a mere 13 minutes of Letby snuffing out Child O's life, she commenced her murderous plot against one of his brothers. Shortly before the conclusion of her shift, Letby performed a sinister act, surreptitiously injecting air into Child P's stomach as she fed him milk. Remarkably, the resilient little boy managed to recover overnight, during a period when Letby was absent from the unit, seeking solace in her own home. However, the following day, within a mere 90 minutes of Letby resuming her duties, Child P suffered another distressing collapse. The anguish experienced by the parents during those harrowing hours remains etched in their memories, vivid and haunting. As they recount the events, a sense of pandemonium permeates the neonatal unit, with doctors desperately fighting to save the life of the second triplet, reminiscent of the grim echoes from the preceding 24 hours.
When I went down, I saw doctors around the trolley, and they're just pumping his heart like a rag doll, really. He was just like a doll, and they were just going like that, to the chest. They were prescribing medication, and they were ready to give up after 30 minutes, and then all of a sudden, baby M just came back to life out of nowhere. And by the grace of God, he's okay today.
In the midst of this chaos, Letby, the nurse entrusted with the care of these fragile lives, uttered a chilling statement to a doctor as the little boy struggled for breath. "He's not leaving here alive, is he?" This disturbing remark bore an eerie resemblance to a similar comment she made after attacking Child C a year prior. Despite the arrival of a transport ambulance team, dispatched to transfer Child P to a specialized hospital, their efforts proved futile, and the young boy succumbed to yet another catastrophic collapse. At 4 p.m., the heart-wrenching pronouncement was made. Child P was no more. In their anguish, the parents implored the ambulance team to transport their surviving triplet to Arrow Park Hospital, the very place where Child P had been destined to receive care. Compassion prevailed, and the agreement was reached. Meanwhile, Letby, consumed by torrents of tears, carried the lifeless bodies of the two departed triplets in a solemn procession, placing them in a private family room within a cooling Moses basket, before ultimately being conveyed to the mortuary.
She took everything. Our joy, happiness.
I'm not the same person I was before.
These tragic deaths marked the culmination of a nurse spiraling into a realm of darkness, her actions progressively escalating beyond control, as described by the prosecution during the trial. Furthermore, evidence emerged that Letby had conducted Facebook searches on the first anniversary of the triplets' passing, seeking out the boys' parents. When questioned about these searches, she claimed the haunting experience had profoundly affected her, asserting, "You don't forget something like that." The 10-month trial presented a formidable challenge to the jury, as much of the evidence delved into complex medical territory, leaving them to decipher its meaning. Each of the 17 children involved in the case had a week's worth of evidence dedicated to their individual circumstances, with the medical notes of a single baby alone spanning over 8,000 pages. The extensive compilation of evidence comprised over 5,500 pages of witness statements and a staggering 32,000 pages of exhibits, including text messages and photographs. To aid their understanding of the case, jurors were provided with a 25-page glossary of medical terms ranging from absent end diastolic flow to biphasic positive airway pressure. After attentively listening to 30 weeks of evidence from nearly 300 witnesses, the jury, comprising 7 women and 4 men, found themselves grappling with one overarching question that remained unanswered. Why? Prosecutors attempted to shed light on a possible motive, suggesting that Letby derived pleasure from assuming a godlike role and reveled in the excitement of resuscitating babies, a notion that first surfaced on the 132nd day of the trial. Interestingly, the nurse herself did not entirely refute this notion when giving her testimony. Letby, during her testimony, revealed her aspirations to care for the most critically ill infants. As a Band 5 nurse, her qualifications made her eligible to tend to those in intensive care. She voiced her discontent to colleagues whenever she was not assigned to those requiring the utmost attention. Furthermore, jurors were presented with the possibility that Letby may have targeted babies to gain the attention of a married male doctor, whom she regarded as a friend but adamantly denied having a romantic relationship with. The similarities between Letby's actions and those of Alit back in 1991 are indeed striking. Alit, who much like Letby was a nurse in her 20s at the time of her crimes, was later diagnosed with Munchausen syndrome by proxy. This syndrome suggests that individuals harm others, in this case infants, in order to elicit sympathy and attention from those around them. Like Alit, Letby appeared to derive a certain satisfaction from the attention she received when the babies under her care experienced distressing collapses. After the third baby's death in 2 weeks in 2015, Letby received a text message from her mentor expressing disbelief at her consecutive shifts. "I can't believe you were on again. You're having such a tough time." "It was part of the job," Letby replied, saying she would keep plowing on.
We bullied her, We'd behaved unprofessionally, we'd behaved in ways that were unbecoming to the profession, and then read out a letter from her, which was a very aggressive letter from her, basically saying, I'm coming back to work and you have to work with me, and I'm going to prove to you that I'm a great nurse and I'm not a killer like you say. And then Tony Chambers finished off by saying, so she's coming back to work, and this is the most chilling thing. I'm drawing a line under this, you will draw a line under this, and if you cross that line, there will be consequences for you.
During the trial, Nicholas Johnson KC, the prosecutor, put forth the suggestion that Letby's motivations for her actions often stemmed from sheer boredom. In moments of idleness, she would incessantly scroll through Facebook and exchange WhatsApp messages with her two closest friends, both of whom also worked in the same unit. Their conversations would revolve around gossiping about colleagues, discussing patients, and arranging fitness classes such as salsa, Zumba, or hula hoop sessions, consuming hours of their time. A particularly disturbing incident occurred during a Saturday shift when Letby attempted to murder a twin boy by injecting him with air, shortly after placing a bet on the Grand National. Merely 2 hours after the infant experienced a life-threatening collapse, Letby messaged a friend, seemingly unaffected by the gravity of the situation, exclaiming, "Work has been shite, but I've just won pound 135 on the Grand National," accompanied by a horse emoji. The baffling reality remains that investigators have been unable to determine how this seemingly confident and competent nurse transformed into one of the most heinous murderers of our time. The absence of any discernible clues in Letby's background has left detectives facing an unprecedented challenge in unraveling the motivations behind her sinister acts.
I would describe her as a person as being beige. She was unremarkable as a nurse. She had a normal friendship group, a family. She had a normal social life, everything you would expect somebody in their 20s to do. She was operating in plain sight because she was so normal. I think it's so hard to fathom how somebody in such a position of trust could commit these offences. The question of why is almost it's too difficult to even, there isn't anything that's reasonable. There is no reasonable explanation, and I don't think I'll ever understand or accept why.
For months, senior doctors on the unit had raised mounting concerns about Letby's link to the growing number of unexplained deaths. The decisive moment arrived in early July 2016, when 2 otherwise healthy boys from a set of triplets tragically lost their lives. This heartbreaking incident served as the catalyst that compelled consultants to demand Letby's removal from the Chester neonatal unit.
The very first thing that Tony Chambers, the chief executive, said to us, he cogitated for a few seconds and he said, well, I can see how that might be a very convenient explanation for things. And what that says to me is that he'd already decided that wasn't going on and this was us just trying to cover up.
He was trying to blame you, in other words?
I think so. He didn't say it explicitly then. We discussed having CCTV put onto the unit. We discussed her being supervised one-to-one with somebody watching her all the time. And then we heard that Lucy Letby had been moved to the Risk and Governance Department, so she'd been taken off the unit.
The nurse was initially moved to a clerical role in, of all places, the hospital's Risk and Patient Safety Office. It would be almost a year before the Countess of Chester Hospital NHS Foundation Trust contacted the police in May 2017, initiating the formal investigation into Letby's actions.
The very fact that the police, after listening to us for less than 10 minutes, realised that this is something that they had to be involved with, to me speaks volumes. And I could have punched the air.
Only after a torturous wait of 14 months, on the morning of July 4th, 2018, did the long arm of the law finally catch up with Letby. The previous night, she had returned home to Chester from a holiday spent with her parents in Torquay. In the early hours, her father, who had stayed overnight, witnessed the arresting scene unfold as Letby, still clad in her nightwear and a blue Lee Cooper tracksuit, was escorted out of her modest 3-bedroom residence. Her sole companions in that house were her feline friends Tigger and Smudge. During the subsequent police interrogation, Letby attempted to deflect blame for the tragic deaths onto a confluence of factors. She pointed fingers at understaffing issues, the incompetence of her colleagues, and even the pre-existing medical conditions of some of the infants. However, this defense crumbled under the relentless scrutiny of cross-examination. Despite the mounting evidence against her, Letby staunchly maintained her innocence. If there was a time, during the trial, when Letby's fate looked sealed, it came on her 5th day in the witness box. Under forensic cross-examination by the prosecutor, she accepted for the first time that someone had deliberately poisoned 2 babies with insulin. She conceded that their blood test results left no room for alternative medical explanations. However, she maintained her innocence and denied any responsibility for these heinous acts. The prosecutor then presented a compelling argument regarding the staffing situation at the time of the insulin poisonings. It was revealed that only 2 staff members were present during both incidents, which occurred 8 months apart. Letby was one of them, while her colleague, against whom no evidence suggested guilt, was the other. However, the fellow nurse was swiftly eliminated as a suspect when police scrutinized the individuals present during a series of suspicious occurrences. Of the 24 incidents at the center of the trial, Letby was present for them all. Another figure in the spotlight was Dr. John Gibbs, a consultant pediatrician who frequently handled emergency situations. He was present for 10 of the incidents under investigation. Throughout the criminal investigation, the insulin poisonings initially appeared to be the most compelling evidence against Letby. However, a stunning revelation emerged during her arrest when detectives meticulously searched her bedroom. What they discovered left them utterly astounded. Hidden within the confines of a teddy bear diary and a pink leather handbag were a chaotic assortment of notes, adorned with hundreds of hastily scrawled words in black ink. On vibrant green and yellow post-it notes, Letby had inscribed chilling phrases. "I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough to care for them, and I am evil I did this." In court, Letby attempted to dismiss them as the desperate ramblings of someone in crisis. She emphasized that she had also scribbled the words, "I am innocent." However, the detectives viewed these writings as the confessions of a serial killer. Detective Superintendent Paul Hughes, the lead investigator in the case, has expressed his belief that Letby intentionally left the incriminating notes in her bedroom, almost as if she wanted the police to discover them. "You do wonder," he reflected, "if you knew that we could potentially knock on your door, if you were aware of the ongoing investigation and the police's involvement. Why would all this evidence be left out in the open? Was it intentionally left to be found? I can't say for certain, but I was certainly surprised by its presence." Following Letby's removal from the neonatal unit in July 2016, a remarkable shift occurred. The tragic deaths abruptly ceased. Since then, over 2,500 babies have been under the care of dedicated nurses, with only 1 recorded death. In response to Letby's attacks, the unit underwent significant changes, now exclusively providing care for infants born up to 5 weeks premature.
We are extremely sorry that these crimes were committed at our hospital. Our staff are devastated by what has happened, and we are committed to ensuring that lessons continue to be learned.
In the present day, as visitors step foot into the neonatal unit, they are greeted by a heartwarming sight, a collection of photographs showcasing the unit's beaming staff, proudly displayed on a bulletin board at the entrance. The unit itself now resides in a brand new building, a testament to the dedication of its workers who initiated a fundraising campaign years ago. Interestingly, Letby herself played a role in this fundraising endeavor, expressing in a 2013 interview with a local newspaper her belief that a larger ward would afford parents and siblings a greater sense of privacy and space. One of the most significant changes is the provision for families to stay overnight, with beds situated right next to the tiny incubators where their precious babies grow and thrive. In this nurturing environment, every passing second, minute, and hour signifies progress and hope. Once again, the neonatal unit exudes an air of safety and security, instilling in families the comforting feeling that they are in the most protected place in the world. The video ends here. Goodbye, and see you again.